Need a push getting your spirits, wine, or beverage brand into the hands of consumers? Interested in winning medals like a double gold award? Proof Awards, the ultimate beverage competition, can help jumpstart your brand into the hands of beverage buyers. Enter the Proof Awards. Be a part of the Proof Awards marketing campaign with our partner, Food and Beverage Magazine. All of our judges are buyers, and that's what sets our awards program apart from the others. Our judges head the beverage programs for restaurants, bars, nightclubs, casinos, liquor stores, big box retail, and national wine and spirits distributors. Your brand will be tasted by buyers from more than 15 states across the U.S. We have hundreds of categories to choose from at www.proofawards.com. Be seen by 12 million readers with our partner, Food and Beverage Magazine. Get tasted and rated by buyers. The Proof Awards competition is open for spirits, wine, and beverage brands today. Proof Awards, moving brands into the marketplace. www.proofawards.com.
Welcome to Proof Live, where booze brands in the right hands. On a quest for the best tipple and toast with the most exciting and respected bottlings. Competing for the 100-point Perfect Score Century Award and the double gold and a spot on the top shelf to be sipped, shaken, stirred, and celebrated. Slide up to the bar with the biggest names in the spirits game as they clink glasses with your hostess, legendary connoisseur Jennifer English, for intimate conversations, live tastings, product launches, and the happiest hour there is. Now, broadcasting live from the commodious confines of the Swanky Proof Saloon, where the liquid elite meet, here is your hostess, the Madam of Manhattans, the Duchess of Daiquiris, the Queen of Conviviality, your hostess, James Beard Award winner, Jennifer English.
Well, cheers, dears. I'm Jennifer English. It's lovely to have you here with us. We're going to have some fun today. We're going to take you to Los Angeles, the city of angels, and tell you a story of true love that turned into a company that is making true spirits and RTDs and canned cocktails and is on top of some of the most extraordinary trending that's happening right now in the spirits game. And it comes from a distillery that earlier in the 21st century was one of the first new distilleries in Los Angeles. They were ahead of the curve on the craft cocktail thing and the craft distilling movement, if you want to call it a movement, which it certainly has been. But we're thrilled today to go to Greenbar Distilling and to welcome one of the co-founders. One of the things we were talking about before we got on the air here today was the fact that my best friend, who's Armenian, taught me a little bit about Armenian culture, and her family welcomed me in. And so instantly you come to understand certain people and the way that they approach life with an open heart and with hospitality. And it really helped me understand why this broad range of products, which really are quite remarkable, because they truly go from non-alcoholic ready-to-drink cocktails to highball ready-to-drinks and spritzes and liqueurs and gins and whiskeys and vodkas and tequilas and rums and even bitters, everything you need. But I love the story of how they do so in a way that at the core really underscores what all of this is about, which is hospitality. And of course, hospitality is nothing more than the expression of a welcoming, a genuine, friendly love welcoming. So welcome to my house. And I want to say welcome to my house, Melkon. How are you today? And thank you so much for coming and visiting with us. Melkon Khosrovian is the co-founder, along with his wife, of Greenbar Distillery. It's lovely to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me, Jennifer. It's a pleasure to be here. And so, hello from Los Angeles.
Let's talk about hospitality. You know, I didn't really put two and two together when I was preparing for the conversation today until we just spoke briefly before we went on the air. And I want to talk about the idea of hospitality and how your line really is meant to cultivate that hospitality, that sense of love and welcoming. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, the company began ironically when my wife and I got engaged. This is going back to 2002. And we began to do the family circuit. You know, my side is from Armenia, as you alluded earlier. and we drink and eat together. We don't have cocktail hour per se. We just drink and toast over something to eat, usually the appetizer portion of a meal. And we drink mostly fruit brandies, think like apricot, mulberry, peach, think schnapps, or we drink vodka. My wife to be hated what we served. She was a French cooking school dropout. She loved wine. She loved sophisticated flavors, and to her, what we were offering her and drinking ourselves was barbaric. It's like, oh my God, that's like turpentine, and how could you put that in your mouth? Never mind, force me to drink it with you over these toasts. I love the toasts. I just hate the stuff. So my, like being a good fiance and being hospitable was to try to make something that fit her palate. So I began to go to the farmer's market with her, and instead of buying food for us, I would buy ingredients to make these complex infusions. Think of it like high-proof cocktails. Go home, get a couple of bottles of vodka, put them in mason jars with flowers and fruit and herbs and spices, whatever I could find, and make something that I thought would please her very fancy palate. And eventually, after many failures, something struck, and then we would get these empty wine bottles, fake a label, and take it to these parties. And then I would pour her, shot glass with this, fancy stuff. And then she would participate. And, lo and behold, my cousins were like, hey, cool, you got a drink. Now, what is that weird bottle I've never heard of? Can I have it? And, they would turn the bottle over. And of course, there's no back label. And then, they're not dumb. They clued in. And then before the parties would be over, they would steal them and, ask us to make another one. And their friends got into it. And then over a 2-year period, we got into the business because it was a new way to be hospitable. It was interesting and fun and different. And it served the purpose, which is, how to have real flavors that were not common at the time. They're still not very common. That would go with food, that would please the palate of very picky eaters and drinkers.
Let's go back and just remind the audience. I don't think that they would necessarily know this, but you met in a journalism school. You were on track to become journalists, or maybe you still did, and maybe you still are on the side. I would imagine that the stories you can tell, but it's a really interesting connection to never losing sight of your origin stories and hospitality.
Well, the thing that connected us to our meeting in journalism school was, journalists by nature are curious, and they're used to being lied to because everyone wants to put on the best possible face.
Right.
So we knew a couple of things that got us into this realm, this new industry, on the right footing. One was complete ignorance. Like, we knew literally nothing except basically what we wanted to taste. And we knew how to ask a lot of questions. And when we entered the field in 2004, as Little Distillery number 36 in the US, there weren't very many places to learn, our craft, from. It wasn't like now when there are thousands of us and you can knock on someone's door and ask a question. We had to beg, borrow, and steal, techniques and equipment from all these other industries, and learned through basically what we had been taught in journalism school, which was get organized, ask a lot of questions, and then try again until something works. And that, combined with, I'm Armenian, my wife is of Indian origin, so both of us are very familiar with hospitality. We love to host parties and have friends over. So we had this kind of built-in test kitchen in a way, or test bar, where we would foist our latest concoctions on our friends and family and have them give us brutally honest feedback. And that's how we learned in the very early days and refined our craft, from learning to infuse to learning to distill and ferment and age. Everything we were just doing by trial and error.
Can you talk a little bit about how you identify as a craft distillery, and in fact, how that really was you mentioned license number 36, going back to the 2000, really, this hadn't happened yet. You were very ahead of the curve. It happened very organically. And now you find yourself amidst a global movement, rediscovering craft distilling. Can you talk a little bit about how we would define for people who might want to know very specifically, what does craft mean today? What does craft distilling mean today? And are you still technically a craft distillery?
Painfully so, I think. To us, I think craft means two things. One, you have to have something original to say. So it can't be like, at least to our brains, recreating something and then doing it locally. Like that's a very poor definition of craft. Just because I do it here in whatever town I happen to be in doesn't make it craft. You have to have some mastery of what you're doing and then have something new and original to say. And then part two of that is you have to actually do it. You can't just dial it in. You can't have a quote unquote master distiller doing all the work and you are the chief promotion officer. We taste and make every day. In fact, I'm part of every batch from, the birth to the bottling or canning. And every bottle or can has my and my wife's, signature on it. I mean, quite literally, we sign every, there's not literally anymore, but it has our name on it and our signature on it, and our kind of imprimatur of taste and taste level. Like, this is what we think is good, and this is what we think is an original idea, and that's what to us makes Greenbar craft. And it doesn't have to do with so much size anymore. I mean, there are some very large craft distilleries. There are some very big companies that have little divisions that behave like craft distilleries. But I think for us, the key thing is originality and involvement. If you have those two, it's really craft. And if you don't have those two, it doesn't matter how small you are, it's not craft.
How many SKUs does Greenbar have now?
Too many, way too many. I think we have 22 SKUs between our RTDs, bitters, and spirits.
Wow.
There's a lot going on, and it kind of grew organically. And every couple of years, we put some in the vault, and then we get itchy, and then bring some new stuff to the marketplace. We're a little bit, obsessive in that way.
Well, one of the things that's quite remarkable is that you have this origin story, but you're always on a quest for irresistible, which is one of my other favorite food words, which is why I'm so happy to talk to you today. The hospitality and irresistible. Any conversation where I can use both of those, I'm really hep to that. Can you talk about the irresistible that a product has to achieve in order to get a label, in order for you to offer it? Because you do a lot of trial, but I'm really curious about your house style of irresistible.
That's a fantastic question, and I think the first time I've ever heard it articulated that way, because it scratches that itch of us as creators. Right. So what qualifies as a Greenbar product? First and foremost, it has to, like being entrepreneurs, solve a problem. Like, what is the missing piece of the puzzle that this particular product is going to solve? Second, it has to have some ability to be different, not just, again, because we make it, but taste-wise, function-wise, somehow or other, it has to make sense. It has to have a reason to exist. And then the third one, which is the most critical for us, is the way we make it, it has to create something we call palate memory. Like, it can't taste like something else. Nothing else can taste like it, because it has our particular point of view embedded in the experience. I mean, drinking is not a very long-lasting thing. I mean, it takes maybe 2 seconds to go from smelling something to drinking it and having it go down your throat. But that little period of time gives us enough time, enough room to create an experience that is unique. Something that smells pretty, the palate entry sort of reflects what you smell. There's an unexpected turn in the flavor. So you go, oh, wow, I wasn't expecting that. And then it ends in a way that, again, takes that and deepens it, so that all of a sudden that memory becomes imprinted on you. So if you want that same thing, you can't get it from somewhere else. Like, every single thing we make is designed and qualifies as a product only when it achieves that. If it doesn't achieve that, then we don't make it.
Talk a little bit about distribution. And when you start out as a small company, when you did, you might have had to maybe prove yourself a little bit more to not only build your brand, but build the category as it's accepted into the national spirits scene. And to talk about ready to drinks, we're only talking the last few years. So you've been innovating and market making and developing since you started in 2004. I would love for you to tell part of that story.
Well, we began basically as a bartender brand. For the longest period of time, we and a lot of these craft mixologists, bartenders had this dream of drinking better. Like we, kind of grew up in the 90s. We had those horrible appletini drinks, which we just wanted to get rid of. And so did a lot of other bartenders. Right around the time we started Greenbar. So we began to make things that were useful for them. And we sought distributors that kind of work with these companies. And they, for whatever reason, happened to be mostly wine wholesalers. They liked smaller accounts. They liked talking about things. They were kind of like geeks, like the bartenders. And they helped us get into the right sorts of accounts, some mixology bars, some craft bars. Eventually that trend became big. So a lot of, even, neighborhood restaurants began to have cocktail menus, cocktail programs. So we grew up in that whole movement, with the dream of having the ability to have everyone drink better. But about, like every couple of years, we would try to put a toe into the retail space by trying to scale that idea to the public. Yes, you have a nice drink when you go out, when someone makes it for you. How about you making it at home? So we would try every couple of years to try, like get people to make drinks at home that were as interesting, but not as complicated as the ones at the bars. And we failed time and time and time again. Until 2018, we're like, okay, this is dumb. Like we can't keep doing this and expect a different result. So we decided to take a foray into the ready to drink market, because we came to the conclusion that, hey, the only way this is really going to work is if we make it for our customers whenever they're not in a bar. And we began with a line of spritz cocktails, kind of like the Italian drinks, but with a California twist. And we began to offer them in 2019, and the response and the volumes just blew us away. I mean, it was much more than we were expecting. And we were doing it in a very kind of halfway way. Like we would make the liquid, and we would bring in a mobile canning company to can it for us. Which was okay, but it wasn't scalable, and it was definitely not profitable. So a year later, coincidentally, the coronavirus wiped out most of our customers, and we kind of took a risk. We built out a $2 million canning line to bring the whole operation in-house. That allowed us to scale and begin to work with bigger companies. And it allowed us to make money. So this became more of a real business than a kind of a exploratory thing.
And now you're in retail at Whole Foods and other places. Where can we find your products, and what do you want to have people try first? What really captures the house style of Greenbar, that if we were going to go have one thing and you really wanted us to get a sense of who you guys are as a host, as a maker, what would you have us try?
Our hibiscus spritz. There's nothing else that tastes like it. I mean, it's similar in a lot of ways to the Italian spritz cocktails, but being California, we try to make it kind of like, something that you would experience when you were visiting LA. So the building block for this cocktail is the hibiscus aguarfrescas you have at taco stands all over the city. Right. These are velvety, luscious, kind of floral and fruity at the same time.
It's just a little bit of a sour to get you back here, but to keep you coming back for more.
It tickles all the right parts of the palate, but it's sophisticated in that, it has layers of flavor. It has a bitter finish. It's sweet and sour. It hits kind of all the, parts of the palate, and nothing tastes like it. Like, I think I would be happy to take the Spritz challenge with any bartender, anywhere, anytime, with this product, because it captures everything for us that a spritz represents, which is that wonderful magical drink that takes you from work to play mode, like that afternoon, like, oh, I'm done working, let me hang out with some friends. I need something to instantaneously transform or transport me from work to play. This spritz cocktail does that better than anything we make.
It's so fun talking to you because I was one of those cocktail geeks who back in 2000 had a few friends. We gathered in New Orleans. We created an event called Tales of the Cocktail, which has become
we were there.
a big thing. So when we started that, we really were just 100 cocktail geeks in a room, hoping that one day someone would be able to make a Manhattan without us having to tell them how to do it. We had hoped that we could go anywhere and have a great cocktail, a well-made cocktail, a well-crafted cocktail. And of course, that was something that had been missing from the culinary side of the world. And chefs were having these great restaurant experiences, but they were throwing it all away at the bar because they were ignoring the fact that oftentimes their opportunity to make a first impression with their philosophy of flavor happened at the bar, not at the table. So if somebody came in with a clean palate and you as a chef got to think about, as not just a chef, but as a host, what did you want to say with that first flavor? A lot of that went missing in the things that were happening in dining at that time. You could go to a great hotel and you could always get a great drink there, but you couldn't always get a great drink if you went to a restaurant. It was like an all afterthought. And wine was becoming much, much bigger. And so around 2000, 2001, we started to really say, well, what if? And the cocktail thing happened in such an interesting way. And now, of course, you can go anywhere in the world and literally walk in anywhere and find a great, well-crafted cocktail. What you're talking about, and when you all started in 2004, this was all still very, very fresh. It was very young. And you guys are, as they call them, OGs. You're the old guys and the old guard and the old gangsters of this category. Because at that time, this really wasn't happening. It's very difficult to put into context just how early you were. Of course, it's a no-brainer today because you can see the trajectory and you can see the success. But it was not that certain. It was not a sure bet. And so the fact that you did this really means it was a labor of love. And I think the proof is in the pudding that you did it that early, that you are successful. It's important to remind people just what a risk that was. You knew your own palate. You got validation from your family and your friends. But there was no sure bet that this very mature industry was going to welcome you. How hard was it to carve out space in that mature industry, in a world that was just discovering cocktails?
Well, we're still at it. So
yeah, I know, right? That's why we're here.
we're not quite. I mean, a few more years, and I'm sure we'll be an overnight success.
Yeah.
But it was. I mean, part of I guess what got us, into it and kept us going was just, as I said earlier, ignorance. We just didn't know what we were dealing with. We didn't quite understand that this was a huge industry controlled by the global giants. We were just hanging out with our buddies, the bartenders, and our buddies, the chefs, and we were just having fun. And that made everything different. It wasn't this big Herculean task we had set ourselves on. We were just having fun. And slowly we got a little bit better at it, and we got a little bit bigger, and we refined our craft, and we learned how to do things, in a different way. And we got introduced to a new distributor or a new client. And that client would ask us, hey, do you make this? And would you mind making it? And then we would introduce you a new product. So it was very organic, and it was very convivial. And, it wasn't like we were selling things. We were just like hanging out with friends and helping them out, helping each other out. It was that sort of vibe. It wasn't really kind of this business 101 thing or like an MBA thing. There was no, I don't think Shark Tank existed back then, but none of us was thinking in those terms.
Right.
It was much more hand in glove, hanging out together at 2 a.m. and throwing around some ideas, and something would come out of that. and then that would become our next thing. It was
Well,
very much like that.
You've now used the third of my 3 trifecta favorite words in food. And of course, that's convivial. Conviviality is something that I think is so important for people to cultivate wherever they go. And of course, we define it as the joy of breaking bread together and clinking glasses. And so I love that idea. Let's tell everybody where they can get more information about Greenbar Distillery.
They can visit our website. That's the easiest place, greenbardistillery.com, or visit our Instagram page, which is chock full of info and pretty pictures, hashtag Greenbar Distillery.
Who makes a better cocktail, you or Letty, your wife?
Oh my God, of course, Litty. She's a whole, I mean, I'm here and she's like way up there because she's a chef and she cooks all the time. And I think in all of my life, the best bartenders by a long shot have been people who cook, or sometimes the chefs. Yeah. In fact, like, you mentioned James Beard earlier. We were the first distillery to be invited to host a dinner at the James Beard House. And, it was mostly because of her. She came up with all these ideas on food pairing, which became a seminar at Tales of the Cocktail shortly thereafter. She's on a different level. She's kind of my inspiration. She's my editor. If we kind of take that journalism structure, I come up with stuff and then she makes it better by telling me she hates them until she likes them.
I love the idea that our ships crossed in the night and that you were doing a spirited dinner at Tales of the Cocktail. And I just happened to be down the street or at another event. So I'm sorry I wasn't at your dinner, but I'm really eager to clink glasses together. You said earlier how much you enjoy toasting and the ritual of connecting and toasting. What is the house toast at Greenbar Distillery?
Well, we try to do our best with the environment, and we always toast to the world because I have no interest in moving to Mars, unlike our neighbor or recent neighbor, Elon. We do our best to give back, and that's part of our mantra. We early on didn't make anything organic, and about 4 years into it, we began to embrace organic ingredients, basically for better flavor. And then we changed our packaging from heavy virgin, paper stock to lightweight glass, recycled paper. And then we began to plant trees. We sell a bottle, we plant a tree. Now we sell a case of RTDs that we plant a tree. In April, we planted our millionth tree. So we always toast to the world because we don't have anywhere else to go. And we owe something to the future generations to come, which is a great world and a great planet to live on, full of delicious, enticing things to embrace. And that's our normal toast.
And if anybody is interested in this idea, because it's a genius idea, I love that you connect with the earth by planting trees. There's a very famous project where you plant trees in Armenia that I have a friend that's involved with back east. So I love that you've taken that and made that for every bottle that you make, you plant a tree. I think that's very lovely. And thank you for doing that. I cannot wait till we clink glasses. I've got to come for a visit and a tour of the distillery and discover what's in the pipeline, what's coming up next. And when that hits the market, would you please come back and visit us again? Would love to. Thanks for having me. And we look forward to seeing you at the Proof Awards. Thank you so much. Melkon Khosrovian and Greenbar Distillery. Look for them online and at your local Whole Foods. I'm Jennifer English. Cheers. How did you meet these fantastic men? Ian, Paul, it's so lovely to have you here with us. Welcome. And I raise my glass to welcome you. We have the Vice President of Marketing from Zing Zang, the company who makes the best, not only mixers, but now ready-to-drink cocktails. Extraordinary friend Diane Mina joins us from her home in Las Vegas, where she has...
Whether you are thinking about becoming a restaurateur or you are already in the business, Michael Politz has written a must-read, The Food and Beverage Magazine's Guide to Restaurant Success. Pick up your copy today at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Books A Million, or wherever fine books are sold.